Welcome back. I am here with the amazing Mike Kelly, retired Omaha World Herald columnist. Mike, thanks for being on the show with me.
Thank you for having me. This is great, Andy.
I'm excited about this interview, and we also have a great story coming out in our December issue on you. But I'm excited just to sit down and talk to you because I don't know a lot of the answers to these questions that I'm going to ask, so I'm going to be learning some things. How did you happen to come to Omaha?
I met a gal. She had grown up in Omaha, moved to Cincinnati, my hometown. Through her, I met some friends. When I was in college, I took a spring break of any college student's dream, Omaha. It was great. We had a wonderful week, and when I graduated, I thought, well, I'll apply for a job there. Thought Omaha might be a nice place to go for 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
Stayed, and no regrets. I've loved it here.
Oh my goodness. So how long has that been?
48 years.
48 years. Okay. And like you said, you stayed. I mean, why did you stay? It's just a great community.
Yeah, I had opportunities to go elsewhere, but I had a succession of interesting jobs. Starting out when your father was a World Herald reporter, and he was one of my mentors, really, in the beginning. And so I did, covered cops, courts, city hall, a lot of other things. And then sports dropped out of the sky on me one day. I was not seeking to go there, but they made me sports editor and sports columnist. That was a very interesting decade.
And tell me the decade. Was that the 60s?
81 to 91.
81, okay.
And so I was replaced. The tough part was sports editor and columnist. And they split that back into 2 jobs when I left.
Right.
And then since then, I've written this general interest column that I've just loved doing.
So I want to go back and just talk about my dad, Bob Hoig. Any good stories about him or interactions or?
Oh my gosh. I was very young, and he was a veteran reporter, and of course started Midland's Business Journal and done
75, yeah.
Wonderful with that. But we had to do a story about it was about prostitution in Omaha. And,
right.
And anyway, we went down to this old seedy hotel in South Omaha, and he walked in, and we were of course not identifying ourselves as reporters, and asked, where to get girls or whatever. I was very embarrassed. I didn't. Anyway, what he wrote was so funny and opened my eyes a little bit. It said when he asked this question, he said she could not have looked more amazed if I had asked to see the originals of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I thought, you can just write that? That's cool.
So you kind of learned a little bit about writing style and what you
sure.
can, put yourself out there. So like you said, you were a sports editor and sports columnist. That just kind of fell into your lap, and then you switched back to news and have written this great column. I'm going to ask for a few stories about your years writing the column, but I want to ask you, how do you think newspapers have changed?
Totally. The revenue is the problem. We didn't realize how good we had it. I didn't, from a revenue standpoint. There was a time when if you were going to advertise, you pretty much had to go to the newspaper if you wanted to get it out. As we know today, there are many different ways to advertise. So the problem is not that newspapers aren't good quality. I think ours is excellent, but the revenue isn't there. So we don't have as many people. The push is more towards digital. I don't know. People are guessing how long are we going to still have print newspapers. I'm told that 80% of our revenue, believe it or not, still comes from print edition. But we can see what the trends are because, like every other newspaper, the print editions subscriptions are dropping.
Well, and I also feel like that we can get, or the person, we and people can get their news from the television, from online sites. There's just all these different avenues to get news. Not so much local, but there still are other ways to get
what you don't necessarily get is a newspaper's main function is that of watchdog of the government. We have had some wonderful investigative pieces in recent years. Before that, your newspaper ties the community together.
Yeah.
You get to know people, especially some of the columns like Matthew Hansen, Aaron Grace, Tom Chattel,
right,
and sports. So a newspaper is still very vital to a community,
absolutely,
in my opinion.
So memorable news columns. So we've got a little time to talk about some memorable news columns.
Well, so many. I wrote about a fellow who was my age, born the day before me, which meant his draft lottery number was number 7. Mine was 264. He ends up dying in Vietnam. years later in the early 90s for Memorial Day, I went back and interviewed his family and friends.
Wow.
That story got picked up around the country and really touched a lot of people.
Yeah.
I have to say, stories about my daughter Bridget really
Right.
gotten the most reaction of all. And for people who don't know, she survived a horrible attack. She was abducted, raped, and shot and left for dead.
I remember that.
She survived it, spoke out on behalf of survivors of sexual violence. Her story got out nationally. She did lots of interviews, including ABC 2020, and she ends up marrying the producer,
Really?
Eric Strauss, and they now have 2 little boys
Oh my
and live in
gosh.
New York. So
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, and I just admire her so much for taking such a traumatic event and turning it around and doing good with it. Because a lot of times you can just close up and.
she became a volunteer advocate in New York City emergency
Yeah.
rooms, went through training, and
Wow.
she'd be on call and could be assigned to any ER.
Yeah, God bless her. And she's speaking at the Omaha Town Hall speaker?
Yeah,
What's that
March
okay.
27th. She's
Okay.
the town hall speaker, so it'll be great.
Yeah. So you're not only a newspaper columnist, you are an MC, you are a singer, you are a speaker. Let's talk a little bit about that.
That's been great to feel even more part of the community for me. I mean, just being a newspaper writer gets you involved in the community. But to be able to do a lot of charity events like you cover, and in more recent years, singing. I used to sing in Omaha Press Club shows.
I remember that.
Making fun of public figures.
Right.
But in the last 5 or 6 years, I've actually taken jazz singing lessons and now one-on-one lessons with Anne Marie Kenny, Susie Thorne previously.
Yep.
And so I've been doing more singing around town. That's been fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Omaha's volunteerism and charitable spirit. I mean, I know you're involved in a lot of those types of events as well. There's so many.
I just think if all the people who just stop volunteer, if they stop volunteering, what would happen to this
I know.
community? It would just shut down. I'm always touched by that and how broadly based it is in so many different things. I mean, just look at your magazine and see. It's
Yeah.
amazing how you carved out that niche to cover all these events. The
Yeah.
newspaper has had a section where
Sure.
we covered them, but it's just a part of the heartbeat of our
is.
community.
And there's so many of them, and there's so many people that are impacted by those fundraising events. So let's talk about, branching out into singing. You touched on that a little bit. I know you had a big 70th birthday
Oh
bash.
my gosh. Anne Marie, my vocal coach, said, I'd say you should put on a show. Why would I do that? Okay, I'm turning 70. So a boy turns 70 only once.
Well, of course.
And so we had about 300 people there, 7-piece band. It was fun and funny. A little bit, part of it was like the press club show. Others were very poignant and touching too.
Yeah.
Steve Jordan, my buddy who retired same day as me, we did the News Brothers, not the
Oh my God,
not
I
the
love
Blues
that.
Brothers, but the News Brothers.
News Brothers. How fun that would have been to see. So we've just got a couple minutes left. You've got a book here in front of you. Let's talk about the book.
Thank you for mentioning this.
Well, you're welcome.
This is a book I wrote originally 3 years ago called Uniquely Omaha. And it's a beautiful coffee table book, lots of photos
that is beautiful.
from the World Herald, and I did
Yeah.
all the copy on it. And I'm happy to say it sold out its first printing. I
Wow.
used to do a joke. I'd say my book is now in its 4th printing. The first 3 were blurry. They weren't, but we sold out the first 5,000, and now we've reprinted and we've updated. We've
Okay,
gone through
'cause-
and updated everything. And
Because a few things have changed throughout the course of you writing it the first time.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
well, I hope to keep singing. My family also lives in Cincinnati, so I'm going to be moving there, but also coming back to Omaha
Yeah.
a lot every month, I think. So.
Yeah.
It's-
What are you going to miss the most about Omaha?
Oh my gosh, well, I'm going to miss writing and just, I guess, getting, the contact that you have with people, whether it's through my columns or, being out speaking, emceeing, singing.
Yeah.
So I want to keep some of that going. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm going to keep coming back. I love this community.
You need to start a Mike Kelly blog where people can stay up to date on your life and
I should do that. I'll look into that.
see what's going on. So,
All
any final words before we?
Just luckiest thing happened to me was coming to Omaha.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, I had opportunities elsewhere, and boy, no regrets about staying.
Well, I've certainly appreciated the stories that you've shared, both on very serious notes and also on very lighthearted notes. They've been, I think people have truly just, that's been a bright spot in their day for so many years, and you are definitely going to be missed.
Oh, thank you so much.
But think about that blog.
I will.
Okay. All
Thanks,
right.
Andy.
Thank you so much for coming, and we will be right back.
On the first day of January, 1892, they opened Ellis Island, and they let the people through. And the first to cross the threshold of that Isle of Hope and Tears was Annie Moore from Ireland, who was all of 15 years. Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears, Isle of freedom, Isle of fear.